So now let's begin. Yes. So every one of you have Node.js installed on your computer, right? So what we would be doing is now we'd be going for actually creating a project and how you should actually do the project creation in React. And we would try to first replicate whatever we have done thus far. All right. We try to create a welcome component. App component would already be there. So we try to create a one welcome component and then we try to call that particular welcome component. React DOM.render would already be there. So this create React app, this application allows you to right away go for coding your components straight away. You don't have to do anything else in that case, right? So let's first verify that now I'm going into the current folder that I'm in. All right. You can also go to a folder which is basically having the right permission. All right. So what we can do in here is we can just first check node version. Should give you whatever your Node.js version is, an npm version. And the whole thing is like it should be greater than 10 or plus. 10 plus version should be there for Node.js, and the relative npm version would follow. All right. If it is lesser than 10 or maybe even lesser than 9, create React app would not work. Right. So everyone has a proper version. Yes. 10, 14. Huh? 10. Yeah, that'll be fine.
613 also sufficient, right?
613, no. Node.js or npm?
No,
npm 6.13 is fine. Node.js has to be 10 or 10 plus. All right.
There is also 12, 14.
Yeah, that'll be totally fine. Yeah. If you don't see the versions, then Node.js is not correctly installed. That's the only problem. All right. So now we'll see what is Node.js. We'll see what is npm. But first, we would like to see how to create a React project in an actual scenario. All right. So I'll be taking the help of a library called create React app. And in order to get started with create React app, we'll be going for create. First of all, we'll go for npm install global create React app. All right. Now, first of all, I would also, before even doing this install, I would like to just clarify what is npm. All right. So anyone here has an idea on what npm actually is? Node package manager. What is it equivalent to in Java? Maven. Maven. Everyone knows about Maven, right? So Maven is a package manager in Java. Similarly, npm is a package manager for Node.js projects. React here, it is implemented as a Node.js project, the whole development environment. Node.js creates for us a project that mimics an actual production environment. All right. So in that case, npm is the package manager that we'll be using for all the dependencies. So our React.js would have something like Bootstrap as a dependency. It would have Redux as a dependency. It would have React Router as a dependency. So for all this dependency, management, we'll be using npm, like we use Maven for Java. All right. So we'll be going for npm install, and you can install dependencies globally, and you can also install dependencies locally as well. So first we'll be going for a global install for create React app, because it is not something which is product specific or a project specific. You'll be using create React app for creating all your React.js projects. So basically we should be able to run it through any particular folder, any location. So we'd have to install it globally. npm, you can also go for I rather than install. G, create -react -app. That is the library name, create -react -app. This should download create React app from the npm's repository and install it on your computer. And whoever has done a POC on React, they would have it already, because that is the minimal required thing.
Create React app itself
doesn't work for you, right? So you're using a Windows PC, right? Who is using a Windows PC here? You're using Windows. For you also Windows, right? Windows. So in that case, what you should do is, I'll tell you where this npm repositories globally are installed, and we'd have to add that.
Index.html.
No, not necessary. The only thing is, this create React app as such is installed as a binary globally. All right, and the location that it is installed is in Windows. It is at users, my user, and then it is app data. All right, roaming, and npm. All right, and you can see here that create React app executables can be seen in here. All right, so what is the folder? Users, my user, app data, roaming, and npm. All right, and for Mac users, it might be user bin npm, I guess. User bin npm. But first, just Windows user, set this particular path as an environment variable path. All right. So now, since our create React app is working, everyone has it working, right? Yes. So now what we do is we create our first app. And it is something like this: create React app space your application name and hit enter. Whatever your application name you want, just don't use spaces in the application name. You can use hyphens. You can end it with numbers. You cannot use capitals. And this would create a folder structure for you. And also it is doing the dependency installation as well alongside. Because if we are talking about a ReactJS project, it is npm that would npm.js. This is the official website of npm, by the way. npm has so many repositories, React included. All right, so React is available, React DOM is available, even Babel is available. So it is going for that installation, right? All the repositories. You'd also see that there is one more, right? Yarn package manager, which is a bit lightweight than npm. So most of the projects I have seen, they use Yarn as a package manager. So I think my computer would be configured to use Yarn itself, but the command for Yarn and npm, they're almost the same. I'll show you both the commands. All right. So for you, it'll be just npm that you'll be doing, and what for me, probably Yarn install and all that. That's something that I'll be doing. All right. You can see now that it has installed everything. It has downloaded Babel, React, React DOM, all the dependencies and all the related dependencies into our project. And now it is giving us certain instructions. So for me, you can see that it is giving me Yarn, go into the folder and then go for Yarn start and so on and so forth. For you, it would be npm start. What you should do is, we should just follow the instructions. CD into the project and just go for, I'll go for Yarn start. For you, it would be npm start. You can go for the respective commands. And it would open up a browser for us. And that would be our React application. And this whole server that is spinning up, it's a Node.js server that is running. And it provides you almost the same environment as a production server, so that your development becomes easier. And this will be something that you'll be seeing. Everyone who is still facing that slowness of the connection, right? So let it be. Just focus on what we are doing right now. Once this create React app is done, we'll just go for the actual project. Other people, you can follow along. All right, or even what you can do is you can code the application, because this whole template would be there, so coding can be done. All right, and what I'm trying to replicate is the functionality that we went for in a single page. We would like to do it in multiple pages. Like welcome component would be a different component, as I said. App is already a different component. You can see in the SRC, there's an app.js. Everyone would get this folder structure, by the way, after installation. SRC, there is an app.js that is there. All right. Now, just check on my screen, please. The app.js that you have, it's a functional component, and it is returning something like this. All right. It's a functional component returning something. What I would like to do is, I'd just like to get rid of everything inside this div. If I do this, if I save it, and if I go to the browser, as expected, the browser is now blank, because there's nothing now inside our component at all. Whatever I type in the component, it's actually doing a hot reloading. So if I go for some h1 tag, you'll be able to see that the same thing gets displayed in here as well. Don't have to reload anything. It'll automatically do that for you. So majority of the time, we'll be working inside this SRC folder itself. All right. Majority of the time SRC folder only. And all the components that we create would be inside this SRC folder only. All right. So as of now, app.js is already there. you can see the code. It is importing something. It is importing React, but that's a different thing. You can see that there is a functional component app created, and that app is exported. All right. So we'd also be creating our component, and we'd be exporting our component. We'd be importing somewhere else, wherever we want. So you can see that app is exported, and in the index.js, all the necessary things are imported. Like you can see React is imported, React DOM is imported. Babel is not imported because Babel has a separate place of execution. It is not inside this code. While this code would be compiled into ES5 through Babel. So Babel has a global installation, like a project-specific installation, is not installed anywhere else. It's not seen as well anywhere else. All right, but it is there inside your project. Otherwise, your project would not run. So, and then this is going for an index.css. This is how you can import a CSS, by the way. And now you can see that it is importing an app. And I'd go through this import syntax in much detail. Once we see what is the difference between ES5 and ES6, we'll go through that. But you can see that the app, which is exported from this particular file, is imported inside the index.js. And here what we are doing is React DOM.render. All right. And then we are rendering the app inside the document.getElementById root. All right. So that is happening. React DOM.render is happening here. So what we can conclude hereby is that index.js is probably the first file that is run as far as ReactJS is concerned. And then rest of the files would follow as per the imports that are done. And also one more thing, that where is this document.getElementById root? Where is the div that is root? That is also a question. So if I check out one particular file inside the public folder, which is index.html, you can see that inside this index.html, there is a div that is the ID root. So here you can see that all the things are separate. Your HTML is separate, your app is separate, your index, that React DOM.render is separate. Whatever components that we'll be creating would be a separate file altogether. We'll be just exporting them and importing them, and that's it. All right. However, you can see that inside this index.html, there's no single JavaScript included. All right. There's no JavaScript included at all. But if I go for a view page source in my React application that is running, you would see that in here there are JavaScript files that are included. So what is the process that is happening in this case? There is a tool called Webpack. This particular tool is a bundler tool. And what this tool does is it bundles all your JavaScript into one, injects that into the HTML of the index.html. And together it's an output that is rendered. All right. So this is also a tool that is running in your Create React app specifically. So this is also something that is not found in your folder structure anywhere. It will be there inside the node modules folder. These are all like Babel and Webpack. They're running in background. What Babel does is it translates all of your JavaScript file from ES6 to ES5. And what Webpack does is it bundles everything into one specific file, and it just injects that file into the output of the HTML. However, in order to start programming, we even don't need to bother about that Babel Webpack running because it is running. It will already be running. And all you have to do is you just have to use correct syntax. All right. So now what my problem statement here is, I want to create a welcome component, and I want to include that component inside the app component and display it multiple times, as I did in the single file that we created earlier. Inside the SRC folder, I'll just minimize the public folder. In the SRC folder, I'll create a new file. The name of the file actually doesn't matter, but I like to name the file the same name as the components are. And in here, I'd be just going for function welcome, or we need it as a class component, right? So class welcome extends. Now what we want to extend is React.component. But the problem here is React itself. Now this is a modularized system, remember. It is now no longer one single file that we are coding everything. So because it is a module system, because it's a separate entity altogether, we'd have to include React if we want to get React.component. All right. So for every component that we create, we'd be importing React from React. So I can go for React.component. There is another shorter way of doing this as well. We'll go for that later. But what I have done is I've imported React from the React framework, and I'm using React.component in here. Anywhere I want to use React, I'd have to import it, because now it's no longer one single file, but it is some modules that are working together. All right. So in here, what is the minimum required method for a class component? Render. And once we create this class, we can export it. Right. This is your class related code. We have created the class as we have previously as well, but this time around we are just exporting it. We'd import it inside the app component, and then we would use it. Now we'll be going into this app component, and we'll be importing that class. So it will be import welcome from welcome. And here I don't have to specify a JavaScript extension, because it is Node.js ecosystem. Node.js knows that we are talking about JavaScript only. So if it's a JavaScript file, it's okay if I do not specify an extension. All right. So I would not be specifying an extension, and then we can call it here welcome with the name property. This would happen, and eventually the result would be whatever we have as the welcome message. Right. So if I do this, then nothing would be displayed there. So interpolation basically would not consider anything at all. It is not like it should throw an error. Interpolation doesn't throw an error, but there is a mechanism called prop types in React that actually give you the facility where you can define property types or properties for a component, where the component should expect certain properties to run. So interpolation as a syntax, it should not throw an error. Why? Because interpolation's fundamental is that if you go for that brackets, anything that is undefined is then evaluated to null. So that's why interpolation should not throw an error. But there is a provision where you can define prop types in React component, and the components expect certain prop types to carry on, and that particular mechanism should enable you to throw an error. Interpolation should not throw an error. And that is basically what it is. Okay, so everyone, what we have done here is just look at my screen once. Welcome is a component that is created in a separate file. It is exported, and then we are just importing that particular welcome component in the app component, and we are calling it. What we have done is the same thing that we had done for one single file, but it's a separate file system that we are creating now. All our projects would go in the same fashion. So now, before starting our project, we would like to clarify the syntax, the language basics that are necessary for a React.js application creation to be done. All right. Yes. So what is the JavaScript that we are using in here? ES6. So there are certain differences between ES5 and ES6 that we would have to cover, and we would have to understand. That would include what this class would be. That would include what is this import and export statement. That would include how variables are created in React. It's a different way in ES6 that we create. Then there are certain other things like a spread operator. There is one spread operator which is also used very heavily. There is something called destructuring of an object. So there are certain syntax and language basics that we have to clarify before going into actual project creation. Now, ES6 is again a very big specification. There are so many things in ES6 that are specified, but we would only be going through the things that are useful for React.js. So which means the rest of the things are something that you should be doing on your own, which might not be used in React.js, but it is something that is good to learn. Now, I'd be going for ES6 language basics. So in this case, I'll just write down the steps that we went for. Create React app and the app name, right? And then cd into the folder. Or for me, it was yarn start, right? These are the steps. Yarn would be taken preference. Like create React app automatically would take yarn as the default package manager if yarn is there. And which is good. Yarn is good actually. Yarn is better. So as a separate discussion, we'll be going for ES6, which is basically the language basics. before we go into React, we should check what variables are in ES6. There's a thing called fat arrow function. Fat arrow function is similar to lambda function, almost similar. And then there is template strings that we would go into, class creation, import and export. Then there is a spread operator and destructuring, right? Destructuring. Okay.